All right. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Next in Line. We're super excited. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. This person is, I have a ton of respect for. I learned a lot about, during the process of getting ready for this podcast. And I'm really excited about what she's going to have to share. And just in general, talk about, the lessons, the learns, the fail, everything along the way, right? Because no one's going to do a better job than her kind of just introducing herself and kind of giving her just a quick highlight reel. And then we can fill in the gaps along the way during the during our conversation. Shivani, if you could do me the favor, can you just give
Yeah.
yourself, introduce yourself and just give a small highlight reel and where'd you start to, how'd you get to the C-suite and where you're at today?
Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity, first of all, Cesar. Who doesn't like to talk about themselves, right? But seriously, to me, when I reflect upon my journey, I landed in United States in Washington, D.C. in 1985 with a degree in hand. And just like any fresh grad, right, thought the world's my oyster. It didn't start out like that.
Mm.
And then from there, taking on any job to getting into IT, starting as a mainframe developer to a DBA, and then moving through learning about, different database types and all that, and moving into leadership, moved to Austin from Washington, D.C. through Colorado.
In Colorado.
And then really Dell was pivotal in that there's a lot of internal mobility, internal opportunities if you were the right person and showed the kind of the aptitude and the risk taking. And
Yeah.
so I moved from technical to leadership roles to really taking their warranty business and building the first MDM for Dell for their 4.5 warranty and asset business. And then really from there on, the network of leaders who saw the potential, who saw in me what maybe even I didn't see, has helped me get from Dell to PayPal to Schwab and now McLean, right? So all of that experience, risk taking, and building the network.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Well, you just kind of basically gave me a list of like a pretty all-star lineup, right? You're starting, Dell, especially during the times that you were there. And I definitely going to double click a little bit on that, but going to PayPal and Schwab and now McLean. I mean, this is like one multi-billion-dollar company after another, right?
Yeah,
So
that
it's
is
like,
true.
that says a lot. I mean, there's, that type of track record and then going from mainframe developer to where you're currently sitting at today. And I'm sure you and your family, you should be very proud of that. I mean, that's huge.
Thank
So
you.
I got to ask you right off the rip,
Yeah.
how important, you said risk, because you said risk and I wrote that immediately down. How important is it to take risk in your career?
Absolutely. I think the biggest risk in my mind, the biggest risk we take for our career is not by staying in the comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a limiting factor, right? If you're going to always stay in the comfort zone, you're never going to discover about yourself, your potential, and even your interest. I started out as a developer, mainframe developer, junior, just fresh out of college. And there's a lot of friends there and the colleagues, and so we were happy writing the code. And then the company brought in these consultants for transformation, modernization. And I was very curious about, what are they doing? How do you transform something? What does that mean even? Right? Because I only knew how to write code.
Mm-hmm.
And I started talking to them about, like, what do they do? Break room, wherever I found opportunity. And they invited me to listen in to one of their meetings, and it was about databases. And, so how do you take a flat file and build a relational database
Okay.
out of that? And from that curiosity, and their whole thing was, hey, you're going to take notes for us if you're going to join our meeting, but you're welcome to join our meeting. And so I joined their meeting. I learned a lot. What I learned about myself is I love databases. I love data and the logic and the patterns. And so if I had stayed in the development, I wouldn't have learned that side of me.
That's right.
And it gave me an opportunity because when that consulting company was leaving, I was like the natural SME to take on the company's databases and become a DBA. And that started really was pivotal for me in my
Springboard.
journey from there to Dell.
Wow. Something I had to highlight there for you because I love two things you said. I love this. This is going to be so fun. So you mentioned risk about, staying in a comfort zone is that's, you can't live there if you want to be
Yeah.
successful to get to the next level. I completely agree with you. But if you didn't have that curiosity about you, you may have stayed in that lane, right? So being curious, and you hear this word. Actually, one thing you also mentioned that I was like, wait, I didn't realize even back then, I've been in the business 30 years, they were using digital transformation, you know, language, right? Because like what, 10, 15 years ago, that was kind of new, was digital transformation. But this has been going on forever, right? It's just
Forever.
the next step, right? But sometimes they get blown out of proportion, right? Like, what is this digital transformation? Man, we've been doing this for years, right? So from COBOL to like the mainframe to like, going to a new
Yes.
technology, take them another level. So
And well, now it's the AI revolution.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh, now with AI, it's still, it's another
Yeah.
form of transformation.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. What's in you that you went right after it? Typically a lot of people don't do that. You just something you went right after it. You say, you know what? I started asking questions. I started, let me take notes. I'm sitting in meetings and now you're in the room and then you're just understanding what it is. Like what prompted you to do that?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, I landed in 1985 in Washington, D.C. Thought, I have a degree and I speak the language, and, people will just want me and hand me the job. That didn't happen. It took a long time. I took on any job, paid bills, whether I have loaded trucks at a drug fair, which then was bought by Rite Aid as the assistant store manager. I was a substitute teacher,
Oh,
anything to pay the bills to keep myself housed and fed, right? So, um,
I'm loving this. I'm loving this. I admire that. You do what you got to do, right?
you do what you got to do. So I think that's when I realized that now looking back, I think that's when I realized that the biggest risk is not taking a risk. If I had just stayed in my lane, like I have to start out in IT and there's no other opportunity, it's never linear. Trajectory of career is not going to be linear. And
Nope.
so take those side roads, let your destination is there, but it's okay if it's going a little here or there, because every experience taught me something about myself,
For sure.
something about risk taking, something about not being, just because those jobs were not the right job or they didn't feel like the right jobs for me. But then they helped me get to where I wanted to go. So I think that's what's really shaped or molded my thinking about risk taking.
Wow. My marketing team's gonna have like a field day with you. Like they're gonna love this stuff. You just dropped one of the big nugget for me. You just said the biggest risk is not taking the risk. That's
Yeah.
powerful. That's powerful. I couldn't agree with you more. Remember, I'm an entrepreneur since '04, so I live uncomfortable all the
Yeah.
time. So I understand that really. So that resonates. I admire that when other people do that, like have that, understand that, right? And I think once people figure that out, your trajectory, you skip chapters, right?
Yeah.
Because while other people waiting to paint dry, you're doing your thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
No, and I can imagine the example that you have for your, I know you share when you have children and all that, like, like that's another thing, like, you showing them like not to have any limitations, do whatever you got to do, right?
Exactly. Exactly. There's many examples. I mean, even if you look at Steve Jobs, from what his first job was to then he went on to the different things, there are all these examples around us. And
I
we
know.
only see the success of those leaders, but we don't see how they transformed themselves or the struggles they must have gone through or the reinvention they must have done, right? So to me, it is about the how they took that journey, and I learned from that rather than just the success factors.
I love that you mentioned that. So I definitely want to talk about that because you're right. So especially today with social media, people see, let's say, a post and they see like the result, like
Yeah,
they see the result, but they don't see the journey that got to the result along the way. How long they think it happens instantly,
that's
and I
right.
think that you're right. Like Steve Jobs, that's what you just said to me, like, I'm sure that he had a tremendous amount of lessons learned. I'm sure that he, had sets of challenges along the way, right? It's definitely not easy to get a top. Nothing's given to you, right? You got to figure it out,
Nothing.
even when it's going
Yeah.
against you, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
love that. So now you work. So speaking of that, so I know you worked at Dell. I listened to a couple of podcasts about Michael Dell. Big super fan, right? I love the vibe. I remember when Dell first came out and that value proposition of buying directly versus going through the channels and stuff. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I was just a young, cat just selling IT staffing and stuff like that. But, when I got to listen to stuff later, I get to appreciate that, right? So how was that experience? You go to Dell, right? And did you have any type of interface with Mike Dell? Did you see like his leadership style in action?
Yeah. So I joined Dell when the stock had already started to rise, but it was still very much, the mentality was still very much like a startup, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Michael would be walking around the floor, and people who had been around for a long time, like I was a fan. I didn't join when in the early PC Unlimited days, but there were people who had been around for a long time, and they just called Michael by his first name and he would respond. For me, I'll share one of the experiences. So I'm working there, and then one day I had this idea about how Dell could branch out and maybe have computers in every car. And I emailed Michael. I got a response from him about, this is a really good idea, but here's what our core strength is. We want to really focus on it. And to me, the fact that the founder of this multi-billion dollar company had read my email and actually took the time to respond to me showed how engaged he was in the business. I'll give you one more example. And this is, to me, that was a huge lesson. So Dell used to give these scholarships to high school seniors before they were going to college. And as an employee, you apply for it. So my daughter, well, actually, both my kids won the scholarship, but my daughter, when
Wow.
she won the scholarship, we got invited, my husband and I and her, to a dinner with Michael. And
Wow. That's awesome.
and
That's phenomenal.
yeah, exactly. That opportunity for this close interaction. And again, here I am. I don't know what to ask this billionaire, and I'm in
Yeah.
this room with him. So I just asked him, I said, Michael, you are already, like, all the boxes are already checked. You're a multi-billionaire. You run this company that is Fortune, whatever. You are in media everywhere. You've accomplished everything. Why are you still working? Why are you still
Fair question.
here?
Fair
And he
question.
said, responding, yeah, this is my passion. I get up every day charged up about what this business can do and the potential. This is what I want to do. What else would I do if I weren't doing this? And to me, that is it. What are you passionate about? If you're going to be passionate about something, you're going to throw yourself into it, and that'll bring you success.
I love that. And congrats to your kid, both of them. So not just one, both of them got it.
Yeah,
Wow.
thank you.
I don't know if they, they probably, I'm assuming, but sometimes kids, do they understand how big that was at the time? Definitely having that dinner and winning a scholarship, and
Yeah.
having dinner with Michael Dell. That's pretty, that's up there. It's hard to top that.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. But even if children, us, whomever, we may not acknowledge or understand the that moment. I think something stays. It becomes a memorable moment, and those memorable moments are the beads of that form that string of your experiences and journey. So I am
That's true.
sure they have learned from it.
And I like what you said, like, he said, like, what are you truly passionate? You mentioned that. You said that's going to make it easier to kind of go through the lessons, right? Or like, the obstacles or the setbacks, right? But if you're passionate about it, like they don't feel like that 100%,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly.
what are you super, like in your career? Like, I know a little bit more because you shared with me so much, but for this episode, what would you say? Can you share with the subscribers and listeners, what are you most passionate about in IT?
First of all, IT, it's never static. And I love that, right? You constantly have to keep learning and keep reinventing yourself, because if I were still in the mainframe, and maybe COBOLs, there's still COBOL programmers, but the
Yeah.
experiences I've had, I wouldn't have had those experiences if I hadn't continued to learn. and understand what new technology is coming up. So big part of it is learning. The other part of it is really finding, to me, it has been a journey of discovering myself. I really thought I loved being technical. And then I found that as I grew in my career, I got a better, who will use the word high? I got more satisfaction when
Sure.
I helped somebody else
Oh, that's
find their niche, find their success. And to me, just thinking that somehow I was able to maybe influence or affect that was so much satisfactory, right? And so that got me started into somebody recognized that I didn't really go for a management job or a leadership job. Somebody just said, Shivani, you're a natural leader. I think you should look into this management opportunity.
all
And I was
right.
like, yeah, so okay, is that really me? And I kind of moved into that, and I found that the sphere of influence, the sphere of impact grows. You can grow it, you can expand it, and therefore then I can solve bigger puzzles. I can solve more
Sure.
complex puzzles and may have a bigger impact on the company's success, and then also alongside maybe help others realize their success.
Oh, absolutely. You were always very passionate about like, helping people get to that next level. And that's when, so you were doing that as an individual contributor, and then you got tapped on the shoulder to kind of, so what was your first official management job?
Yeah, my very first management job again at Dell, and I was a QA manager,
QA manager?
quality, yeah, for in the what we used to be called worldwide ops. It was the manufacturing or operations division, and so I learned a lot about the specific area for how does Dell do the imaging of the laptops and desktop, and how do we test it, how do we
Great.
automate it,
Okay.
a very different area than the databases that I managed, but
More
because,
infrastructure, kind of client services
yeah,
area.
exactly. And then moved into more of this internal systems QA from that. But every step again, somebody recognized, they said, you should take this job on. And when I took it, I realized I have to learn about this new space. This isn't just databases. It is a
Sure.
lot about the different ways to test it, the positive and the negative testing, and how do you automate, how do you build all new languages that I had to learn in that way. And my team really helped me. Yeah, they really helped me understand it.
So when you first, when you jumped into that manager role, how large of a team did you have to like jump into? Was it a fairly small team, or was it something like it was bigger than you may have expected?
The team size itself wasn't very big. I think Dell had these standards of, how your span of controls. I think it was maybe like 10 people. But for me to really help the team overcome the challenges that they had in that space, I had to learn a lot about the space itself. I had to then, learn about really each individual, what motivates them, what is it that they find more challenging, and then put together in my mind the summary of that to like, okay, so now as their manager, as their leader, where is it that I can impact the most? Where can I make the most difference early on so that they can be more independent and run the show while I maybe help take on a more complex puzzle that'll help them more in the longer run. So I think that's the strategy part of it. Where is it that you can immediately take the burden off of your team? So because they're in there to do a job that they're passionate about, right? So figure out what is it that'll help them right away.
That's excellent. So, so if you had to jump from, so that was your first in management. How along Dell, like how much time did you spend there, and like what was the last role that you were in at Dell at the end of
Yeah.
your, let's say, tenure?
Yes, I was at Dell for 12 years.
Okay.
When I left Dell, so I was back into my passion of databases, and my last role, I was a director at Dell. Dell
Okay.
has always had this warranty business, right? The warranty and dispatch, when you buy an equipment, whether you take it, you're in China or anywhere, you can get the part for it dispatched to you. But at that time, when I started in this space, these were all disparate databases, disparate systems. There were errors in the dispatch. Dell was maybe not getting as much money as they could make out of their $4.5 billion business, right?
Mhm.
Because the data about what part you wanted had to come back to the area where you purchased it from, the location you purchased from. So there was time and data sync errors. So I built this master data management, a central system, single
Well,
source of truth, with really and got the data all synced up. It helped me in that personally, helped me in that I saw the global impact of this,
that's
helped Dell in that they now had a seamless place where there's a single source of truth. And really the team that I had, they got so energized from the success story. Like each one of us have gone on to
mhm.
take on even bigger roles
Wow.
because that success really seeds and it plants in you that confidence of you can do more,
Yes.
you can do bigger things. So yeah, that was my last role at Dell.
That's
And
a
then
You left with a
yeah,
statement. That was big. That's to get them to that level and kind of like from a legacy perspective. It sounds like also like the folks that were on your team that, that you led also were springboard into higher level roles or new opportunities.
absolutely. And globally, right? So I had a team
Being
in
global.
Brazil, had a team in India,
Wow.
and then US. So yeah, all of us, we still sometimes connect with each other over LinkedIn or something
Oh,
and we'll go, yeah, remember when,
I
right?
love that though. I think those relationships they should last forever, right? Like, because you all continue to learn from each other. So that position, you spent 12 years at Dell, you're on a phenomenal trajectory, right? Especially, able to execute on an initiative like that based on where they were started, right? That's pretty significant. I can imagine the financial impact it must have had. So what did that prepare you for next? What was that next? Like what tapped you on the shoulder that was interesting enough for you to say, let's try it out?
Yeah, and this just happened pretty organically as well. Didn't realize at that time Dell was going private, right? So I'd started what we'd seen internally is the projects had started to slow down a little bit.
Okay.
And I had some colleagues who had joined PayPal. PayPal had opened an office in Austin, and one day they said, "Hey, let's meet for lunch." So I went there, and they said, "We have to show you our office." So I went inside, and they introduced me to this person in the hallway, and we started to just have a conversation about the Dell MDM that I had built and the CRM that was going to be built on top of it, and that guy just asked me some questions. And then later on, he sent me a message saying, "Hey, let's meet up for lunch." Yeah, really. And we met for lunch, and he said, "Look, we've got this new CRM at PayPal. We're having some issues with the adoption of it. Want to
Hmm.
learn from you how you influence the adoption within the systems at Dell." And we just talked it out. And pretty soon, I had a job offer from him to
Wow.
join PayPal.
That's
You know?
big. That's pretty big.
Yeah. And so, and lead a business architecture team about the CRM. And I just thought, well, should I leave Dell? But it was at that place, like my colleagues were there. So there was this comfort zone of,
Sure.
some people.
You had some people that you
There's
knew.
that, yeah, there's that risk taking of, I've already got this very successful and a name for myself at Dell. Should I really move on to something that is new and untried?
That's right. That takes
Yeah.
risk. And it take this, the unknown, right? No matter, even
Yeah.
if you have colleagues there, you're still new, and it's 12 years is a long time.
Yeah, exactly. But I made that jump
Good for you.
and it really helped me learn so much more. Because when you stay with one employer, you only know how things are done based on how that employer and that culture and that team does things. But when you are now with PayPal, I learned the California way, the Silicon Valley way of how things are done. And, you know, it was very interesting. It was at that time PayPal was part of eBay when I had joined. So really learned about, and then while I was there, they started to go through the divestiture. So I learned quite a bit about how do you do that,
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
yeah, and I wouldn't have learned all that. I had stayed where I had stayed.
Yeah, and that, well, and everything that you're sharing with me, kind of, it just constantly prepares you for that next level, right? So when you started at PayPal, it was to lead it was a business transformation team, I think you said.
Business architecture, yeah. So it was like, let's come up with a way to really understand what is needed to build this new CRM solution and have, and being customer obsessed, and our customers can be internal or external, right? So business architecture just is a layer of the different architecture tenets that are there, right? And so
Sure.
this is about, you start out with having that customer obsession in mind and building that process and understanding the requirements. So that's what I started. There was no such team. I actually started
No.
that
Wow.
practice.
Oh, so it was a new team on top of it. So like no
Yeah,
pressure, right? None at all,
no
right?
There was no team. It was just me. We were just going
Wow.
to start. Yeah, it was a startup within PayPal in a way.
That's impressive. How and Drew, your tenure there, right? I mean, how large did this team get? How big did this impact team get to?
So, yeah, when I left PayPal, I think we had about 8 people there. It's still, and now, sorry, I don't know because PayPal's gone through a lot of transformation and changes.
Oh,
So I don't know if that team as such exists, but I know that for quite a few years after that, they strengthened and they became more than that, right? So bigger and really created a separate brand. So there was this solution architecture and a business architecture, and they were really like strengthening teams rather than a concept. So
okay.
yeah, it was very, very successful in that. And I absolutely loved architecture from there on. So besides the technical architecture and the database architecture, now
Uh-huh.
learning business architecture, enjoyed
Yeah,
that.
I got to double click on something real quick because you mentioned that. As I struggle with this in general, in my time and experience and stuff like that. But moving to new systems and adoption, do you have like a little playbook for that you can share? Because the adoption part is to me is like I'm excited
Yeah.
about it. I can see the impact it could potentially do. But how do you get everybody on board?
Yeah, that is, human beings, right? We love, because we have gotten experts at using a certain system or an application, we know exactly what to overcome, right? And so adopting something new is always going to be a challenge. So again, it is, to me, it is about understanding the pain points first and being customer obsessed and showing in that, whether it's through mock-ups or wireframes or the MVPs that you build, how those pain points are getting resolved, how they overcoming it, and a continuous stakeholder engagement. Like the underpinning for whatever you're doing has to be continuous feedback loop from them. So what you're building
Mhm.
isn't what you're building, but what everybody's building together.
Amen to that. 100% with you on that
Yeah,
because it's not exactly like they should be 100% side by side with you. We're all kind of making this adoption together.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I like that I documented something you said, like the pain points with the current system. You kind of almost bring them back there and remind them about what it is. And then collectively together, you're showing them like this new platform and they have the feedback. They're giving you that. They're kind of helping you
exactly.
architect it, right? Is that what you're mentioning?
Yes, exactly. And there's along the way, because you're getting the feedback, and when as you show the improvements and how you listen to them, you heard them. Now you
Hmm.
implemented something that makes it easy. Now their skins in the game as well. Right now they are as bought into the success of it as you are. It isn't your product; it is our product that you're building.
I love that. That's it. It's not yours, it's ours, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So that type of playbook, it doesn't matter the environment, but that's just something that kind of a great best practice to approach any type of initiative that's requiring change, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then the joint success, the celebrations, it has to be joint. Again, so they're giving you, my stakeholders are giving me their time, their input. So therefore, then when we succeed, it is again a joint success, and a celebration should be joint as well.
I love that. You're making me take a lot of good little cool notes here.
Yes.
I love this stuff. I'm gonna like
I'm enjoying the conversation with you.
it's also this I don't know if I mentioned, but the learning that we get here is just it's awesome. I mean, you have been extremely successful in your career, and we're not even halfway done yet, right? So like you have like our subscriber base, our listeners. I mean, they're gonna get some really good information here. But everything you mentioned is like I'm kind of passionate about, which I love. So let me ask you this. So let's get, if you don't mind, some technical stuff. Because you're already right. You took me down from Dell to PayPal. I got to ask, did you hang out with Elon? Did you have dinner with Elon with like you had it with Michael Dell as well? Or like,
No, no, not really. But with the CIO at that time, Scott Cease was the CIO at that time. Really, if you think about it, like when I see my journey from, so I was at LPL Financial for a year, and it was because Scott Cease
oh,
was opening an office in Austin and reached out to me over LinkedIn and said, "Hey, Shivani, we're opening an Austin office. What are your thoughts?" I mean, that's just the way, but he must have remembered something about
oh, for sure.
for him to reach out. And so I joined. He left LPL, and McLean had called me while I was there, and I was really hooked on to this transformation story that the recruiter
You can't get
talked
away
to
from
me
transformation opportunities, huh? They
about.
follow you. They find you. I'm telling you, I love it. Is that something
Yeah,
that like that's how you evaluate when you evaluate opportunities? Because I'm sure with your background, where you and everything you accomplished, it's not the only one. You've probably been, your LinkedIn box is probably pretty heavy. But do you evaluate that? Do you look the more challenge, the better?
yeah. There is a greater satisfaction when you solve a more complex puzzle or a more
Hmm.
complex issue, right? For me, there is a greater satisfaction. If I were just given something to keep lights on, to maintain, I think I
That's not
would
you.
be really, really bored.
You could probably take
And
on another whole other role, but knowing you, right? There's no way you're taking a lights on job, right?
yeah, yeah. So at McLean now, we just got through rebuilding the cloud strategy. How do we modernize McLean?
Okay.
McLean's a 130-year-old company, very
Wow.
successful. It's a Berkshire Hathaway company. How
Yep.
do you take the success and the stability of this foundation and leapfrog, use technology to leapfrog and get the business it's very similar inflection point that Dell had was going through when I was there. So there's a lot of parallels here. But yeah, so now I'm building the strategy for cloud. How do we take the next step leap in the cloud?
Well, the playbook for, Warren Buffett, I mean, they buy really good companies, right? Very strong, very
Yes.
profitable. So I got to mention on a sidebar, our first podcast guest ever, right? Was, I don't know if you know him. His name is John Schellenberger. He's the CIO of John Mansville, which is another, Berkshire. It's another Warren Buffett
Yeah.
company. And I'm meeting him on Thursday. So I gotta
Oh,
connect you guys. I don't know, because I know that those organizations, they all kind of meet. IT people, all CIOs meet. I don't know if you ever met him before, but I can make that connection. He's one of the greatest dudes I know. He's very,
that's
very,
great.
he's awesome. You guys would get along really well. He's a nice man, and he's very generous with his time and very thoughtful. I would love for you to meet him if that's cool. You
Yeah,
probably already have.
absolutely. So we have an internal channel across the Berkshire subsidiaries, trade
Mhm.
ideas and all of that, which is great, right? But I don't know if I've
Huge.
met him in person.
No. How important is a network in your line of work? And as a leader in IT, and you're leading an organization, how important is your network to you?
Oh, extremely important. The network, different for different reasons. One, somebody may have already come across the same challenge and either has solved it or is going through the pain point. So there's lessons you can learn from the others, questions that you can ask. You get to a certain level where people are relying on decisions from you. And while you can ask a question, a peer network is so important because now you can have more this open ended, like, how did you solve for it? What were the lessons learned for you? Rather than just looking at the puzzle that nobody around you has encountered before, right? So there's that. There's also the network from a trusted network, people you've worked with before, the leaders who took me from where I was to the next step, whether within the same company or outside, right? They've seen your work ethic. They've seen what the potential and same thing that I have seen. So you want to bring in the same people. There's this trusted network that you know who you can rely on when for a certain SME area. And then the network is really so people can actually challenge you in different ways. The network isn't just about the comfort. Like people are asking you questions and probing you like this. My team that invite or my colleagues who invited me to PayPal that day, and then this journey happened because now there is this sense of discovery that you can also discover because now you're with the colleagues that are providing the scaffolding perhaps, but they're also challenging you in different ways. So the network is very
That's thanks for breaking. No one's breaking it down like that before. I love that. The peer and accepted. I love that because they're two different things, right? And
yeah,
and I
yeah,
think that's
absolutely.
important. And then from you, I do got to ask you a question about this and how you approach this. You gone from very large organization to every opportunity that you have is like, it's like one massive opportunity to another. Along the way, when you first start, how much of a honeymoon period you have, or where do you feel like, how long does it actually take to implement any change or recommendations? What's your approach there?
Yeah, I definitely am a big fan of that book, The First 90 Days, the principles in there.
90 days?
Correct. But 90 days doesn't mean 90 days for every company or every job situation.
Amen. More like 9 days in some companies, right?
Acceleration is the key word here. So the principles, you got to go in there and absolutely be a sponge and learn. Can influence a change, can impact a change until you know the real problem, and then that gives you an opportunity to become one, right? What I mean is, you can't make impact a change being an outsider. This is how we did things in the no, now the adoption is not going to be there if you're going to come in and try to make a
Yeah.
change as an outsider. So
It's
allow
difficult.
yourself that time to become one of them, be part of the journey, be part of the culture, and that has helped me in
Hmm.
the adoption that you and I talked about earlier, because now I'm not an outsider. Now I am as much bought into the success and the failure and the challenges as anybody who's been around, whether their tenure is 20 years with the company or, or new.
So, and stuff like that is difficult to, gain that type of trust within 90 days too. Like it takes longer, sometimes a little shorter. I guess it depends on, it's a personal thing, right? It could be you, but I mean, it could be like, certain groups are on board, certain groups are not, or even people. How do you deal with
Yeah.
that? Like, I got a kind of a tough question for you a little bit there. How do you deal with like people that just, they're not going to jump on the vision?
No, absolutely. There's always going to be some who want to wait in the wing where their tolerance for risk is less than the
Mm.
other people's tolerance for risk or new, right? And
Sure.
so you have to find, first of all, what pain point are you solving? What pain point can you solve immediately that gets the trust of those who are willing to take more risk or go along with you in the journey? And then really have to find those influencers. We talk about influencers in the social media. There is influencers everywhere. The local leaders who say,
Absolutely.
no, yeah, those local leaders are your influencers who, and while you stay focused, they are going to be in their network talk about the impact made, the changes made, how things have been solved. And those influencers are also going to bring back to you what is still not working. And therefore, you have to be open to what is still not working. Why is the adoption less in this area, perhaps, where more in this area? Have I missed something? Have I solved
Yeah,
for a particular set of stakeholders, not the other set of stakeholders? So
that's
have
true.
to understand who those local influencers are.
That's great feedback, though. I love that. I mean, and you said something that I wrote down here. I wrote down as a North Star. You always kind of go back to the pain points because that's objective, right? You know,
Yeah,
the pain, they're obvious regardless of, process or anything. Those are pain points that they agreed that they need to change. I like that. I wrote that down. And I do agree with you on the influencers 100%.
yeah.
Like they're everywhere. There's different versions of it, right? Versus the social media side. So how important is, marketing? Like, let's say it's a new initiative, new system. Do you collaborate with marketing, like internal marketing to like communications? Is that a big part of helping assisting with change?
Yeah, I would say that we need to use that more, that medium that is available to us a whole lot more, because communications rumor mill will work much faster than official communication channels, right? And so how do you get ahead of maybe a bad publicity, or we were just talking about the the low risk tolerance. And so how do you get ahead of that? How do you keep your stakeholders engaged? That communication is just so important. Communication, whether you do it formally through your internal Marcom team, or you have these, the sites you set up, internal your channels that you have, whether you use Slack or Teams or whatever, right? Communications is so important because it is a two-way street. So informing people about what's coming, how it's going to change, perhaps, or simplify what they do today, getting the feedback, getting the questions. And to me, hearing feedback is extremely important. And you
That's
won't get the feedback if it is a one-way communication. So you got to have the communication has to be both ways.
absolutely. That's great. That's great feedback. Thank you for that. So let me ask you. So I'd like to switch gears a little bit on you. It wouldn't be a podcast, especially an IT one, without asking about AI today, right? It's
Yeah.
such a hot topic. It's everywhere. It's going. I have a question for you that I've been asking a lot of CIO friends is, how are you balancing the pressure of driving AI adoption with also the need to maintain security and compliance there? Just because I'm hearing that the business is moving pretty fast,
Mm-hmm.
faster than normal, just because they don't want to be, they get asked questions like, reading something and saying, are we getting left behind? And a lot of CIOs are more taking a very calculated approach to this, which you have to. They're responsible for many things, but how do you balance? Like, have you run into any of that? Any type of like that?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, if we don't adopt the new technology, and AI is a new technology, then our competitors, are we staying ahead of our competitors? Everybody has competitors, right? So you gotta adopt the new, use that to have a better, bigger impact for the business. You got to also understand the risk tolerance level for each industry, for each company, for each business.
Sure.
How much can you tolerate? Yes, standards are important, but for us, what we did here was we actually rolled it out internally, a lot of AI internal, right? The co-pilot and things. And then people saw the power that AI brings. And then the business is, oh, why can't we do this externally? The speed with which we can do things through AI, the harnessing of the multitude of uh, hours that a person would have to either write the code or go through the data. Now you can do it so much faster, and it really gives my team the time to then take on something that is maybe even more complex, that needs some human thinking while we do the analysis, the predictive analysis, the internal thing about taking notes and summarizing and taking action. It frees us up all that time to actually now devote to something more complex.
100%. That stuff's very time consuming. I can't even remember when I used to sit down. Okay, let me recap this email and write down the notes of everything. You can't remember everything 100% with the 6 meetings you had that day, right? So
Yeah.
it gets out of control.
And then for business too, the potential for the predictive analysis is just amazing.
I like what you said about, if not, your competitors are like, it's something to really take, understand that, because it's like, if you get left behind, I mean, it can be critical to the business. You could lose market share in an organization.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that could be fatal in certain instances, right? Let me ask you. So I see all these posts left and right? They keep on saying stuff like this. So I hear so much positives. I'm a big fan. We even have our own AI practice. So like, we're all in on AI, right? But why do I keep on seeing these posts? How do you feel about when you read these posts that say 95% of AI projects are not producing ROI? Like, it's everywhere. It's like, bam, 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 everywhere. I'm like, I don't know about, maybe I can't just be the 5%, right? I can't be. I'm not that gifted, right? I'm not that gifted. But like, you're talking about, you put an Iron Man suit on you. Now you're like, you can do a lot more quickly, than before. Why do so many posts, or is a lot of concern around this?
So you got to have experiments, and you have to make room for experiments with something this new. Even if you take this old example of Einstein, right, we talk about the 99 ways, right? So Yeah, the 99 ways didn't produce the ROI, but the 100th way did. And so the experimentation is absolutely needed. And again, ROIs and the receivers, who's receiving that ROI, I may have a different perspective of what is important to me and where I need the return on investment. But this is me, experimentation is important, but standards of, you brought that up. To me, the standards are very important, right? We gotta get to a place where policies and standards, so at a bigger scale, at a nationwide scale, when we talk about, especially when we talk about cybersecurity, we gotta have some governance in place because AI is
Oh yeah.
being used not just by legitimate business, but the bad actors as well.
Oh, I know. It's almost makes them. It gives like the bad actors Iron Man suits now, right? Like we're battling each other. Like who's got the better suit right now? It's like it's there's so much opportunity, but there's also it could be in the wrong hands. It can be even worse, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you from an AI perspective. I love asking this question. This is moving like how people say, well, what's your 2 to 5 year outlook? AI doesn't. AI moves way faster than that, right? So it's almost like this quarter. Like I feel like all the big platforms like OpenAI and Anthropic, and you got Gemini, Google, and everybody has their own thing, but they're like one up each other every other quarter. It's like they have the next new best stuff. How do you stay locked in with a platform that can constantly changes so much?
Yeah, I don't know about the locked in part, but we got to make a decision on which one we're going to adopt and use, whether it is for the developers, whether it is for our agentic AI platform. We got to make those decisions. Yes, you're right. Can't right now the crystal ball is all like, like, is it
It's
going to be the
moving
next one up? Yeah, I think so. Staying agile and adaptable will help us figure out if we pick the right one. But
like that.
we can't wait for stability in that AI market and the products that's out there, because if we don't make use of it, train our teams on how to use it, and then use it for the better of the business, then it's going to be too late to stay ahead in the business. So
I love that.
got to move, keep
That's
going. Yeah, I'm excited about it.
That's good. That's great to hear. So like, how do you, from a workforce development perspective, you mentioned that you said, I love that you said that you can't wait for stability. You guys, it's like, it's an arms race, right? So like, how do you internally or externally, how do you attract that type of talent, maybe talent gaps, if you may have for this new technology, and, or how do you, make sure that you have programs in place to help people with AI literacy or just kind of come up to speed? Because it's not just an
Mhm.
IT, it's kind of an everybody thing.
Yeah, yeah. So absolutely, training is very important. I mean, we have our internal training platforms that we have launched that,
Yes.
and then also taking that old, when we used to do hackathons, we still do the
Yeah.
hackathons. Now we have these AI days that we're launching, right?
Really?
So
Oh,
everybody gets participates in it, come up with an
cool.
idea. Yeah. And build
Oh,
that,
really? Like a
build that.
dedicated day to like almost like a mini Shark Tanks,
Exactly.
like you're
That's
starting
it.
and stuff like that. I
What
love
can
it.
you do? Show me, and
And you're putting the tools in their hands, right?
that's it. And
Wow.
so internally, that's how we train each other. You get to meet the other AI enthusiasts. You learn from them. What are they using in their personal life? How have they
Sure.
used it? Yeah. Because I think we're experimenting a lot more in our personal life because there's freedom, right? And not.
You could go down right. You could continue it's like, I call it my daughter. I take this from my daughter. She calls it a thought partner, right? It's just like, it unlocks like things and like, you know what? Wait a second. You just made me think of something else. That's what I
Yeah.
what I love about AI is like, it helps you discover what's possible,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Your company, you can punch above your weight class. You can be I love the agility is going to be agility in AI, almost like a hand on hand. Like
Yes.
if used correctly, you can really make some impact, right?
Hmm.
And then I'm looking at your background, reviewing your background. This is right up your alley, right? If you think about it, because you've been like business, architecture and transformation for almost probably your entire career. So this is nothing necessarily new. I just think it's going to help you adopt faster, right?
I hope so. I'm seeing the results. I am
You are
seeing the
good.
results internally, but then now I want to see where we can take it externally as well.
Excellent. So also because you did some more internal like productivity type of stuff
Correct.
versus, let's say, revenue generating type activities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But that's safe. But that's good. That's safe. You know, when you get on the other side, it's that keeps big time score, right? If you can move the needle on the revenue, right? Anytime that happens, I know that because I'm just, have multiple businesses. But let me ask you this. So if you had
Yes.
a bet as we wrap up, right? If you have a bet in AI, let's say 18 months from now, what do you see net new, what's possible? Because I know you're enthusiasts into this. And then 5 years from now, what do you see like what's possible out there?
Oh my goodness. That is going to make me think a lot more, if the time allows here. What is possible? I mean, look, Elon talks about, pretty soon we will have the Jetsons Rosie in our homes,
That's
like
right.
taking care of all yeah, exactly. Somebody was telling me Austin downtown, there's this humanoid robot walking around and and it stops you and says, hey, do you want to roast me to roast you or tell you a joke or something, and it'll scan you
Really?
and say
Oh, wow.
something. I haven't encountered that here. But there's, so what is possible is really all these things that today in personal life, right? I really believe that in personal life where we have to now be DoorDash and all of that is getting taken care of, your grocery, your Instacart, everything
You're
is
right.
getting taken care of by this one person, and you have more time now to devote into whatever you're passionate about. So that is how I see the positive. Now, it also, on the flip side, what I see also is a lot more disinformation and misinformation that AI is generating.
Hmm.
And therefore, how in our personal life or in corporate life, like how do we actually, that is going to be the next step that the cyber companies are taking to kind of separate what
Mm,
is and come up with tools that help us identify what is actually real versus what is fake, right? So to
that's
me, that's what I see in 2 years here, right? Yeah, the cyber getting geared up about that, and then personal life, more comfort coming,
yeah,
exciting.
yeah. Having things do for you, groceries, laundry. I mean, you name it, right? I mean, that would sound kind of
That's
cool.
it. It
So when I get
does.
home, I have more work-life balance. Everything's done, right? Everything's
That's
done,
it.
right? So, and I do got to just a couple more questions I do have for you, and just kind of outside of AI, we're kind of moved past that. And something I think is important is I know you're an advocate for obviously women in technology and stuff. And I've seen Mia, I have a daughter as well. So like I'm big on that, right? I'm no limitation, let's get after it. But do you have any advice for, women in IT? Are there obstacles or what type of advice would you give them based on your experience and your track record?
Yeah. So I want to say two different things to the other leaders who are there, women or men. Allyship is so important. Allyship means being aware of maybe the stereotyping that somebody else did unintentionally, the unconscious biases, right? And making sure that the women there are getting their voice heard. I have an example. I was in a internal meeting, and some project manager, she's a woman, she said something, and people kept on talking in that meeting. And I said to everybody, hold on, guys, hold on. She just asked a question, and I think she really made a very good point. We need to hear her. And that person was so happy. She came to me after the meeting, like, oh, I want to hug you. I thought it was important. That allyship has got me to where I am. Somebody put me in front. Somebody made the space for me. And I ask all the other leaders to make that space for the next in line, right? To the
Absolutely.
women who are looking to do more in their career, I would say that people call it the imposter syndrome. I call it the perfectionist syndrome, in the
Oh,
sense that we women, we always want to show how we're perfect from the childhood. Never, we don't think we're not enough, experienced enough, or, have enough credentials. All these women say that if you're 100% perfect for a job, then you should be aspiring for the next level job and not that job.
very true.
So,
Very true. That's great
so
advice.
shed that perfectionist syndrome, the imposter syndrome. Be ready to take that risk, and then learn from your whatever missteps you have, but keep moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, You brought up imposter syndrome, and we had a couple episodes. We had some folks talk about, and they mentioned a lot of good things. But my friend Joe Hernandez, he's a CIO down here in South Florida. He kind of dived deep into that on our episode. And one thing that he came out with that he shared with me was like, you got in that room for a reason. Understand that. Understand that.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all you need to know. Like, you're there. Go do what you're there
That's
for a
it.
reason. Go for it. Do what you need to do.
I love that. You're in the room for a reason. Wow.
It resonated with me. We're from similar backgrounds from New York and stuff. So I was like,
Yeah.
hey, I got that, Joe. It was in a live permit. We have a live podcast studio now. So he came and did it here. So we were like high-fiving each other. I was like, I like that. But you mentioned
I
some
love
really good advice here. And the last question I have for you is kind of two parts. And it's more, one, what kind of advice would you give someone that just got that tapped on the shoulder, say, I want you to come in and be our CIO for the first time, first time CIO. Any advice would you give that person?
You don't have to be the smartest person in the room, and you don't have to have the answers for everything. There is a team, CIO, or any leader, right? They're harnessing the knowledge, the experience, the ideas that the team has and putting it together in a comprehensive manner that either the board can understand and be behind that, or whatever stakeholders you have. So for any leader, it is about finding from people around you what the solution is, but being able to connect that dot to get the right, whether it's the right buy-in in whatever way, funding, support. And so CIO's job is to get that buy-in, but you don't have to be the smartest person.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And then some for our next generation, right? And this is crazy statistics out there it's very true. A lot of folks that are coming into, let's say, have a lot of CS degrees, 77% right now are struggling to get in the door of organizations right now. What type of advice could you share with somebody that's, in that type of situation?
So again, I want to say, yes, market turns, right? Sometimes we say it's an employer's market, sometimes it is the candidate's market. Be ready to explore things outside of what you think are your areas of passion. If you only want to be a Python or a full stack developer, but the job you're getting is something different, go for it. Once you're inside, once you have your footing in the door, now you can prove the value that you bring to that business, to that team. And then, therefore, after that, you can find more opportunities.
I couldn't agree with you. I love that, because it's like, just focus on getting, it may not be that, this absolute job
Yeah.
that you thought you had in mind as soon as you graduate. Just focus on getting the door, and then you can navigate your way around, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Or discover like you actually enjoy something more like I did. I really didn't want to be a developer. I love databases.
You found that out, right? Because you're
I
curious.
found that out. Yeah.
Well, Shivani, thank you for this. And thank you so much time for spending, generously your time. You have a very large job to do, and it means the world to us over here at Next in Line. We're all about paying it forward. And I think absolutely this episode is going to resonate. You definitely paid it forward all over the place. Thank you so much. And I want to make that
Thanks.
intro between you and John, because you guys got to know each other. You guys have that. I'm telling you.
Thank you. And Cesar, really thank you for this opportunity to share my story.
I'm humble, seriously, because it's almost embarrassed to hear that stuff.